What up, boxing fans? How's everyone doing? Gilberto Torres Jr. with Torres Boxing. I hope everyone is having a great day, guys. And real quick, I want to get into it. I want to talk about the big fight happening tomorrow, December 20th, in Phoenix, between Danny Jacobs and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So the fight is going down. There was a lot of controversy going into it, a lot of uncertainty, because from what I understand, Chavez Jr. at one point declined to be tested, I think by VADA, if I'm not mistaken, while he was in camp for this fight. Now, of course, you know, that could be controversial. I don't want to get into details about the whole thing because I don't know. I'm not well versed in that, just to be completely honest with you. So I don't want to give an opinion that's not really valid or not backed up by enough knowledge of the situation. But what I do know is that the fight is going to go down. Apparently, the Nevada State Athletic Commission served an injunction allowing Chavez Jr. to fight tomorrow. Gabe Rosado was always on the sidelines. He could have been the guy fighting Danny Jacobs, so he was prepared for that. But nonetheless, it looks like we are going to get the fight. It's official. Daniel Jacobs versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. tomorrow night on DAZN. Real quick, if you don't have DAZN and you're trying to watch this fight in high definition and get a lot of boxing content while you're at it, then go ahead and subscribe to DAZN today. You can go ahead and visit the link in the description box. I have it down there. Go ahead and get DAZN. It's a great deal for any boxing fan out there because without getting too into detail about it, for $20 you can get a month's worth of not only this fight and other fights happening in the month, live content of boxing, but also you can get MMA content, baseball content, all the documentaries, all the specials that they offer on the platform. It's really a great platform. It's a win-win for any boxing fan. Anybody that's really kind of dogging the DAZN platform, I don't understand that. Why? Because you're saving money as a consumer. Isn't that what we all want? To save money and leave more money in our pockets for other things. So it's $20 for a month's worth of access to anything that DAZN has to offer you. Or if you want to go for the full year, if you enjoy what you're watching, if you're a big boxing fan, then you might as well get the year's subscription, which is $100. So that's a bargain, considering how pay-per-views nowadays are costing about $80 for one single event. You know, so I highly recommend it. The link is in the description box. And without further ado, I want to talk about this fight, guys. I want to talk about my views on this fight. Now, Daniel Jacobs is coming off a loss to Canelo Alvarez. Now, it wasn't necessarily a lopsided loss. It wasn't a fight where he sustained a lot of damage or he looked bad in. No, it was a competitive fight. I remember watching it, and it wasn't an explosive, exciting, action-packed fight. There was a lot of moments of tension, on the edge of your seat action, because you just didn't know if there was a brawl was about to erupt. And that brawl never really came about. It was more of a tactical chess match between Jacobs and Canelo Alvarez, and I guess that's the type of fight you can expect at times when you have two elite level fighters in the ring. Nonetheless, Daniel Jacobs did lose by unanimous decision, which left his record now at 35-3-0 with 29 knockouts. So he's coming off a loss, and that fight was back in May of this year. And now he's moving up in weight to 168 pounds, the super middleweight limit. And he's taking on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., which has always been a controversial figure in boxing. Why? Because we've seen his progression in boxing. We've seen how he's had his ups and downs, and we've seen how a lack of discipline and focus has really affected his career performances. The last time he was in the ring was back in August of this year, so just not too long ago he was in the ring, but that was just a one round fight because he was able to dispose of his opponent in quick fashion. So he didn't really get a chance to knock off the ring rust, because before that, the last time he was in the ring was also against Saul Canelo Alvarez, and that was back in 2017. That was back in May of 2017, so nearly more than 2 years of ring inactivity. He comes back, but he only gets less than one round of action under his belt. So you could say that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is coming in a little bit rusty, a little bit, with inactivity, of course. So it's gonna maybe play a factor in this fight. The one thing that I do see working in his favor, at least early on, is the fact that he's going to be more at a natural weight. When he fought Canelo Alvarez, that was at a catch weight, if I remember correctly, it was at a catch weight of 164.5 pounds. And they set up these conditions that if he went even half a pound or a pound over the weight limit, that there was going to be tremendous fees for him to pay. So when he came onto the scale, I remember watching the whole scenario and the weigh-in. I remembered how Chavez Jr. looked literally like a skeleton coming into that scale. He did not look like himself. He didn't look healthy. I understand that some boxers, when they come onto the scales, they look thinner, they look leaner, but his complexion was just pale. Cheekbones were really visible. He just looked like a skeleton, and that's not saying it in a disrespectful way. That's just how he looked, and I'm saying that because he did not look healthy even at 164.5 pounds. So with that being said, him being at 168 pounds, I think it's gonna help him, because I remember back then he was competing at 168 pounds or 160 at one point. When he tried to make the jump up to light heavyweight, which he weighed in a little bit lower than the light heavyweight now that I'm looking at his box rec, but that was against Fanfara. And he got demolished in round 9. And I feel like that may have been just a little bit too big for him, at least during that time in his life. But now he's at a weight where he's not necessarily a 160 pounder. And he's not a light heavyweight. He's in the middle ground. He's at 168 pounds. I'm hoping that this is going to help Chavez Jr. I'm hoping that this is, weight is going to allow him to come into it healthier than he did against Alvarez back in 2017. Now, in the press conference, the last press conference before the fight this week, he did say that he hates diets and that he's, he doesn't like cutting weight or something along those lines. I don't think he's struggling to make the weight necessarily. I don't think it's going to make him look unhealthy or feel unhealthy. I just think what I take from those comments is that he just, like any other person, I guess, he just doesn't like losing weight, or he doesn't like being in that training regimen. And so that's what I take from those comments. I do believe that he, walks around at a higher weight. Yeah, but I do believe that he'll also be able to make 168 a lot more comfortably than he did the other weight, because I can only imagine the struggles and the sacrifices he made to be able to meet that contracted weight with Canelo Alvarez. Aside from that, I do think that the whole inactivity is going to play a factor in the fight. He'll have a little bit of ring rust. I hope that this whole thing balances itself out. The added weight, the more comfortable natural weight for him. Daniel Jacobs is having to make the jump, although he also has said that he was uncomfortable making 160 pounds. I think the first few rounds of this fight are going to be very critical for Jacobs. He's going to have to be adjusting and feeling out the weight and how he can react at the new weight. He's going to be facing a more natural super middleweight in Chavez Jr. Chavez Jr., he's going to feel a little bit more natural at that weight, probably a lot better than he did against Canelo Alvarez. But at the same time, he also is going to have to use those first few rounds to really adjust and kind of get rid of that ring rust. Once we start getting past the 3rd round and into the middle and late rounds, that's where things are going to get interesting. I don't know how this fight is going to go, guys. You know, I know that Daniel Jacobs is the favorite heading into this match. Unfortunately for Chavez Jr., his string of inactivity, his lack of discipline, focus, and all those problems that have ailed his career are playing a factor in people's perception. And so he's coming into this fight as the underdog. And one thought that I got yesterday when I was watching the press conference and the promotion on DAZN was how I got a feeling, and for Chavez Jr. And me, I hope it's not the way things are going, but it would be really sad if Chavez Jr. is just being used as a name. You know, a name to boost Jacobs' profile and get him into contention for a bigger fight. You know, I'd hate for that to be the case, because I feel like Chavez Jr. is still young. He's 33 years of age. He still seems to be in his physical prime condition. He still has a lot more to offer. He doesn't look shot at all. You know, it's hard to tell, obviously, with the whole Canelo thing, but that was just a shell of himself, in my opinion. But I still feel like he has more to give. But I would hate for him to just kind of be, you know, for them to use him right now as sort of a stepping stone for Danny Jacobs, and more of a transitional fight for Jacobs to go on to bigger and better things. You know, I hope that they're not just using Chavez Jr. as a name. So that puts a lot of pressure on him. You know, a lot of pressure for him to succeed and really show out here, because these opportunities don't come often. You know, Daniel Jacobs is a big name in his own right. You know, he's been in there with the likes of Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez. So even though he may not, you know, because it's very hard right now for fighters, or we haven't really seen, you know, since maybe Canelo and or, you know, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, these superstars break through into the mainstream. But when it comes to boxing and to a certain extent the casual viewer, Daniel Jacobs is a name, and Chavez Jr. is also a name. So this is pitting two solid names on one night, a fight between them to prove something to the public, to prove something to themselves, to prove that they can continue to succeed in the sport. A loss for either man is going to be a major setback. I feel like it'll be a bigger setback for, you know, it's tough because I want to say it'll be a bigger setback for Chavez Jr. because of all the pressure and all the expectations that are on him right now. Or maybe there isn't a lot of expectation, but there's a lot of pressure, because if he wins, that's an impressive win against a good, solid name. A fighter that is, yes, lost to Canelo, but lost in a competitive fashion to him. This sets Chavez Jr. can reinvigorate his career and spark new life into it. At 168 pounds, you know, he can justify saying that, you know, the fight with Canelo was something that it just wasn't him, and that 168 pounds is his weight class and where he feels he can succeed. He can say that if he defeats Daniel Jacobs. You know, if he goes down in a competitive affair, that'll still be a good showing, but at the same time, he is in desperate need of a victory. So that's a lot of pressure on Chavez Jr. Daniel Jacobs, on the other hand, it's easy to say that, oh, if he loses, he can just say it's my first time in this weight class. I'm acclimating to the weight, you know, to the added pounds of weight. But at the same time, it's coming against Chavez Jr., whose perception in the boxing community has been impacted negatively by all the things I've mentioned already. So how will people react if Daniel Jacobs loses to a Chavez Jr.? You know, like I said, it's sad, but unfortunately this is what Chavez Jr. has really brought upon himself, and it's on him tomorrow night to really kind of change that perception. But a lot of variables going into this fight. I'm expecting a solid, good fight. Like I said, the first few rounds I feel are going to be more of a feeling out process for both guys. Once we get past that third round, however, that's where things are going to get more better, more interesting, and we'll be able to see who is going to get the upper hand and win this fight. So I'm expecting a good fight, guys. I'm excited for it, you know. So make sure you guys check it out. If you haven't already, then the link is in the description box. DAZN, great stuff on there. But guys, let me know your thoughts. Who do you think is going to win this tomorrow's fight, and what do you think about the fight? And without looking too far ahead, what are the implications for a Daniel Jacobs victory and or a Chavez Jr. victory? What's next for them after this fight? Let me know in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon to receive notifications on future content, guys. But until next time, I'm out, and God bless you.